welcome back to another live discussion tonight. Tonight's going to be a little different topic, same kind of genre, but we're going to be talking a little bit more about what the priorities are within basically your first year of moving to your property. So there's a lot more, there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to priorities, and they're going to be a lot different for a lot of people. It's going to be dependent on where you're living, what kind of condition your house is, if you're building, if you're buying property, and basically if you're wanting livestock or even if you're wanting to garden at all. So we're just going to share with you our experiences and our mistakes, how to kind of be on a tight budget and only really doing the necessities to get the most out of your money is basically, I think, what we're looking at.
Yeah, we get the ball rolling as kind of as fast as you can to getting yourself up and running, whether it be a homestead or a farm setting or a ranch like we are. You know, getting that. For us, it's getting protein in the freezer. I think for you guys, it's getting
getting the garden going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know when we first, Jason and I first got our house, we did move in the fall. So we had time because our house needed to be somewhat renovated before we could really consider anything else. So we had renovations to do, but then right away in the spring, we got started on having a relatively decent sized garden, but it wasn't large. So we could plant the, necessities like the tomatoes, the cucumbers, lettuce, things like that. But our first step when it came to the garden was we planted our small fruits and asparagus. So I guess one thing I really wanted to bring out in this live was basically everybody, when they get their property or homestead or whatever else, they're always wanting to get an orchard started, like planting, getting their fruit trees on. And I totally understand the concept because they can take up to 8 years to get fruit. So yeah, you want to get them in the ground right away. I actually don't recommend doing that. Personally, I think there's a big risk in doing that with the cost of getting your apples, your pears, your plums, whatever else you're wanting to get in. So it costs a lot more money, for one, to get an orchard going. Two, there's a great loss. You do lose some of your fruit trees. Not all of them are going to survive. Second, you have to wait a long time to actually get food from it. And even if you do get your fruit from fruit tree, sometimes they're spoiled by bugs and worms, and you don't even get to eat them. So there's a big risk in putting all your money into an orchard. So I 100%, I could suggest you to do anything. If you're starting and thinking of a priority being a garden within your first year, within your first few months or something, start off with your raspberries, your asparagus, and your blueberries. And the reason why I say that is you can get, for a decent price, look around, always buy bulk. Don't go to Walmart, Canadian Tire to get your raspberry bushes. Find a nursery that will sell you bulk items. We planted 250 asparagus crowns within the first year. So one, we're going to have asparagus right away. Two, we planted, I want to say maybe 50 to 100 raspberry canes. And that's another thing. Don't buy the plant, buy the root stock, the canes and the crowns. And we got fruit right away from our raspberries. And actually, I think the third year of raspberries, we did 48 jars of jam just off of our property. The other thing is the blueberries, you can buy them in bulk as well. I like to get the high bush berries. I find you get a lot more from them, but they do give you fruit within the second year, and you get so many blueberries. So that's something you can put a smaller amount of money in, but get a huge profit from it right away. And then, later on, if you're thinking about planting apple trees and pear trees, do it after you've kind of been there a while, get to know where you want them to be planted, and when you actually have money saved up for it. Because to me, it's just a bigger loss right away. And you want basically you want the most food you can right away. One thing that Jenny and I were talking about the other day was maybe, you're getting into homesteading and you don't really know how to can yet. With your fruits and stuff, and even your asparagus, if you had to, you could literally put it in Ziploc bags and freeze it. So it's a win-win, I
Which
think.
is what
with that.
that's what I did this year because
Yeah.
I do not can.
So we froze what, corn, strawberries.
We did blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. And the other thing is strawberries too. I did strawberries, bare root strawberries this year.
Yep.
And right away had stock. So
Yes.
they were quite easy, and I literally just put them in a laundry basket because I am the queen of temporary. And this comes down to your tree thing too. Is for me, you're putting in trees right away, but you're also utilizing land, and that land is taken up, and that's it. That's what it is, and you've got no more use for it at that point.
Yeah.
It's true. You might want to move things around.
And so that's
sure.
the thing, is that you may discover later that, oh wow, actually, you know what? That wasn't a really good spot for those trees. They should have actually been here instead. Using them for, like, we have an issue right now where we need windbreak. So instead of me using cedars or decorative type trees, I will actually transfer it into like fruit trees or grapes to line a fence with, to kind of block some of that with, stuff like that. So there's different ways of doing it, but it can tie up your land, and
That's
that also
true.
becomes a different issue. Whereas some of these other smaller stuff,
They don't
like the
take up a
fruits-
lot of space.
No,
No.
and you
No.
can put them. You can put them in pots. They don't even have
It's
to
true.
be in the
That's
ground.
true.
So
Oh,
I got the rubber chicken out.
meet our friend here. I don't think we've come up with
We
a
haven't
name
come up
for
with a
him.
name, so maybe he is.
Yes.
The
So
comment chicken.
this
Good
is
one
our
there.
little friend here, and Jay over here as our
Commenter.
commenter. When something comes up and we need to stop talking because we know we can go on and on,
Yeah.
he's gonna get his chicken out here.
New Acres wants to have a canning party, so we should
Could
do
do
that.
that.
that's what we're doing.
We could do that. We
Definitely
could
do
do that.
Okay.
We're gonna need to this year because we're at the point now where we're expanding into larger and larger gardens, and that's something that we weren't ready for at the first. Like we
No.
started small in a garden that was manageable, and then we went larger this year, and we had a lot to deal with. So
Thorhaven just said, "Looks like Rusty the Rooster."
yeah,
So
Rusty
we'll call it
We can call him Rusty.
possibly Rusty.
There we go.
It's just setting off poor Mo.
Oh yeah, the dog.
Yeah.
He really likes Rusty.
Yeah.
yeah.
The other one's fine, but yeah, that one's inside. Not happy.
The pup
So.
wants the chicken. Yeah. And for for us, I guess, like, that's quick return too, is going with the garden. Like, you're gonna see
Yeah,
results
quick
really
results.
quick, and you're
Depending
gonna,
on what you pick, yeah.
yeah, and that's a big win your first year in any
yeah.
property, is to see the fruits of your labor, literally, to return back. Like, that helps you kickstart you through the winter.
Yes.
Like, because your first winter is probably going to be tough. It was for us.
It was for us too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at livestock as what, when we went into livestock to start ours, we had different ideas of way to do it. We didn't do it probably right. Like, we started with horses, which is the absolutely most useless animal to bring in, we'll say. So we had one horse, and then we brought cattle in, knowing that we were going to have cattle to help bring back the land. But cattle is a really large expense, and they take 18 months from calf to butcher before you see that return. So, for us, we had chickens come in. It's 8 to 10 weeks, and you're going to be putting chicken in your freezer at a much less expense, much less risk, much less initial investment. That's what we would.
You just need, like, even a small area, small coop for your chickens. You don't have to go in big expense with fencing.
No.
With chickens, like, you can just
Yeah.
get one roll. It doesn't have to be big.
Yeah.
You can start it with 3. You can start it with 5. Or if you want to have 20 or 30 to put in the freezer. You know, and you get eggs right away if you're going
Yeah,
with
egg
layers
layers,
or dual purpose
Yeah.
or meat birds. So
So we had dual purpose, and we kept a few just to see. Like we butchered most, and then we kept a few to see how long it would take to lay eggs, and it was almost 3 months, and then we started getting eggs from them.
nice.
Which is kind of nice because maybe you get chickens your first year and you decide, you know what, I can't butcher these animals because that happens.
Yeah.
Then at least you're gonna end up with egg layers. Now we went with 50. The first year we went with 100 chickens, and they give you a couple extra expecting losses, and we ended up butchering 106 the first year. So we did
Zero
well. We had
loss.
0 loss.
That's awesome.
And when you look at it as one chicken per week, because that's really what we eat as a family of 3, it's only it's 52 weeks a year. So you need 52 chickens a year to feed yourself one chicken a week. So
Wow.
and we can do it at our cost is like 8 to 11 a bird. You should be able to raise a chicken for that in our area. $8 to $11 per bird. Yeah.
Wow. And then also like thinking of the cost of feeding chickens, if you're able to free range them, you're cutting down on your cost like significantly. So that's one thing that we noticed when we free ranged our birds for the first 4 years. We basically just
Well,
fenced them
the
in
only
this
the
year.
first time, this year was, I should say last year. So 2022 was the
Yes.
first time we had them all fenced in.
And we spent a lot more on feed
On
this
feed,
year
yeah.
than we have in previous years.
Interesting.
So having that free range ability is going to save you a lot of money on feeding your chickens.
We pasture ours. We raise only meat, right? We don't do egg layers. So we invested in a portable electro net for the chickens, which is not cheap anymore. And we bought it on sale for $130.
130, yeah.
And we bought 2 sections of it, and we moved them across our fields, which fertilize the fields. But in the same time, it gives them foraging ability, and it saves you on
Yeah.
feed as well. So that's how we did it with them.
And look at your grass. Like their grass was, you could tell where the chickens actually were moved at that year.
Yeah.
Was that last year, last summer?
We did both
This-
years.
this-
Yeah.
And it was like so high, and then where the chickens weren't, it was like nothing. There was
Yeah.
And
It was
the
phenomenal.
Deepness, it was rich color.
rich, dark,
It was more
thick.
dense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We did, like, we cut hay over top of the same place. So the following year, after that first iteration of chickens, we cut 3 times the amount of hay off of that same section.
So you're benefiting in a lot more ways
Yes.
than
Oh,
you
yeah.
think.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So I mean, if you can get them out of a coop and put them on your land instead, that's the way to go.
That's the way to go.
Now, for those that are like, well, what about cows? Well, cows are 18 months before you are able to harvest that first calf, let's say. And there are a lot of expense. Like you're talking, probably when I worked it out, it's $2,000 or $3,000. Let's say if you had to buy hay in to feed them every year, and let's say you lose a cow, well, now you're out a large amount of money.
It's true.
So I think cattle would be. I'd be very leery on starting with that. I mean, we didn't. We just fought through it, and we had a few hard lessons on bottle calves and whatever else, but now we're in the point where we're seeing the returns, but we needed them for land clearing. So maybe not everybody's in the same situation where they have that large property that they need to clear. So in that case, I wouldn't recommend going the cattle route. In general, unless it's not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, it's a big expense.
Yeah.
It's a big risk. If you want to go that larger livestock route and you want to get quicker returns, pigs are the way to go. Pigs are phenomenal little diggers. Well, you guys seen what they can plow up, and you can take a pig from piglet to butcher in 6 to 9 months.
Wow.
And you can estimate a feed cost of, for us,
It's 250.
250 to 300 with transport per pig, minimum. That's your base, what it costs to feed one. And that'll give you a return 6 to 9 months later of 200 pounds of pork in your freezer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So overall, what would you start at? What would you suggest if someone was to start out? Be like, hey, I just moved to the country. I want to get some meat in my freezer. What would you say? What would you?
Chickens.
Chicken.
'Cause
Meat
none-
chickens or
yeah.
rabbits? Meat rabbits.
Yeah,
We don't do
We don't
them.
do rabbits,
But yeah, I think it would return about the same what the chickens do. Actually, almost better because
I
they're
think they're-
technically
yeah.
grain free.
They're more feed efficient. They're a lot cheaper to raise a rabbit than they would be a chicken.
Yeah. So it kind of falls back down to, like, when it comes to livestock, you're falling back into what we were talking about gardening, where it's like, okay, well, you could do
It's
lettuce
true.
real cheap and some fruit, and then fruit next is a little bit more expensive. You got to maybe do a little bit something done a little bit different. But then trees are a whole different commitment level.
That's true.
Well, livestock is kind of the same way. You can do the same with your chicken and your rabbit. It's a lot cheaper. But then as soon as you start going into even the smaller animals like the sheep and the goats,
Yeah.
well, it still balances. It almost becomes just as expensive as the cattle in the end because you're fencing, your time,
Yes.
the health issues or just...
Well, expensive if there's anything wrong, like medications
yeah,
and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so-
if I've got issues with my chickens, the cost is significantly less,
Exactly, yeah.
I can assume, than your cattle or your
Yeah.
horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you
And
kind of...
same as pigs. Like, to buy a piglet in now, it's $100 to $150, which I think is personally crazy, but that's what people are asking. Where if you can go with a chicken ready to lay hens for eggs, that's an instant return. And we just looked it up just before the video, and because the pricing just came out today. So this year, your ready to lays are anywhere between $15.30 a piece to $21.30 a piece. Like that's a quick return
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how long does it take to lay
for your breeds, let's say.
normally?
Like ready to lay? Like what do you...
To get them from chick to laying is how long?
Was it 8 weeks
No, like
or 12?
I want to say 24. I don't know why
I
I'm
think
drawing
it's
a
more-
blank.
I think it's
I
more
think
than
it's
that.
24
Yeah.
weeks.
Oh, okay.
And and then the Chanticleers, they can take even longer sometimes. So
Yeah. So I know, like, a lot of people initially are gonna go, oh well, I want to raise the baby chicks up to that point.
like we
but
started.
then that's almost fall. By the time
Yeah.
you actually have them, like from spring up until fall.
We usually start our incubator around April, and they start laying in like September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It is a long time to wait. But for me, I'm like, I don't want to have chickens in the house that long. So I'm like, if I can start them in April, push them out in a couple months,
Yeah.
then otherwise I'd start them earlier. But
Yeah.
we don't have anything else set up but in the house. So
Ours is another topic to bring up too, I guess, is your time of year that you decide to make the jump. I mean, if you make the jump in the fall, you have an opportunity to purchase in pigs, whatever size you want, at $50 a piece. I mean, they could be butcher weight, they could be piglets. It's $50 a piece. You will find, because nobody wants to winter pigs. But there's butcher
True.
dates available January, February, March that are just about freed up. So you can take that to an abattoir or to a butcher a lot more readily. And pigs in the wintertime, they just eat and sleep. What's comments like? Comments.
T-Hand 141 was Homestead was saying, by raising two big pigs, they sell one and keep one, and it pays for the butchering for theirs and some of the feed.
Yep.
Dana was mentioning about two Tamworth. I'm guessing they're type.
Yep.
Tamworth's a little longer to take.
They're a type of pig, though?
Type of pig. So we have a Tamworth boar, but they take longer to grow.
Yeah.
So you're looking at like 9 to 12 months.
Yeah. So they were just mentioning they had two of them last year to clear half of their property,
Yeah.
wow.
and they never saw pigs on a pasture wooded
Yeah.
area before, and they did an awesome job.
Oh yeah.
They're amazing.
Clearing
yeah.
stuff out.
They can
Yeah.
lift stuff that I break my tractor using, like those
they
rocks.
were in the boards.
They take up like things that have been buried around this farm over the last 100 and some years. They're digging up old plows and old sections of stuff, rocks that have broken my box blade on my tractor. The pigs are digging them up.
loosen up around it, and then you can go
Yeah.
through. So
That's a great point. An awesome topic. They're
Well, it's
really
another
good.
way of tilling, really.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting your
Yeah.
manure and stuff in
Well,
there.
even our chickens.
Our chicken, I was going to
Yeah,
talk about
that's
that.
right, yeah.
Now, they would take a little longer than a pig, but I would be like, I'm amazed at what gets dug up out of the ground at our place with our chickens.
Yeah.
And so, because they are diggers as well,
even
but
ours are.
and
Yeah.
finding things in the barn there.
I know, like, I can't, like,
Where'd that alternator come from?
I don't know. There's this alternator that just showed up in the barn, like an old one. I'm like, what? those come from?
legit, like-
Oh yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Like there's a lot of old, like it's an old homestead, right?
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's being dug up, but it wasn't in the barn before. It happens. Chickens can do it, and it just they do take longer, obviously, to do than a.
But when you're looking
pig.
at it as, you know, the first winter comes fast, no matter when you
Oh, yes.
start. So let's say you've got pigs and chickens doing this work for you. It really boosts your productivity.
Yeah.
Like when pigs are clearing land and you don't have to do it on the tractor, or if you need a patch that you want tilled for your garden and you don't have a tiller or you don't have someone locally that can do it for you, throw the pigs in there with electric fence, leave them for a few weeks, that thing will be ready to go. Like, yeah.
Wow. I know our neighbor. I don't know. Is Bella Love on there? Yes.
She is. Yeah.
There
Okay,
you go,
hey
yeah.
Bella Love,
Yeah.
love you. Anyway, my neighbor, she had pigs. I don't know, they were kind of down by our place at one point, and then they were behind her barn.
Oh, okay.
I was like shocked. I was like, they literally flattened out her one spot by
Yeah.
her trees. I'm like, that's where your garden's gotta go.
Yeah.
Like it was amazing the amount of work that pig did. I was shocked.
Well, they cleared right beside our barn.
They did,
It
yeah.
was just, and there's an old trail that basically goes down to the other two pastures, and it was just riddled with weeds. Like there's no way you could walk through there without getting a burr on you or getting stuck on something or whatever. And they've just completely, like, not that they smoothed it out. You smoothed it out at the end, but like they dug out the stuff. They
Yeah.
kind of let it sit and die. And then he came through with the tractor and I think he did one sweep down
And one
up.
back, yeah.
And then we came up with the horses that day, and
So-
we're like, holy crap, it's a road.
Yeah. This
Wow.
old trail was just a cattle trail, and the videos on our YouTube, you can see kind of the progress the pigs made over a few weeks. But this is just two sows and their little tiny piglets
Oh, I
that
think the people
did
were
that.
away at the time.
Some of them were. We still had 3. But
Some made it past me.
I mean, that's a big benefit. I mean, that's an early start for
It
any
is.
homestead
Oh,
to,
yeah.
to get those things done.
And even the stumps, like those pigs can remove stumps. Like
Yeah.
if you're cutting trees down, like even for
Yeah.
starting a garden or I do know that there's some people out there. I've seen it. Friends of ours have bought land and then they have it for a couple years, and they don't build right away. I'm like, you could literally, I mean, they would live in a trailer or something, but have your cows there, like tilling where your garden would go,
Clearing
getting
it
the
out,
stumps
yeah.
and rocks out, because then they're going to build the following
Yeah.
year. Like, there's so many options, right?
I think a lot of people are scared to initially bring in livestock.
Oh,
And in reality, like, it's been the greatest thing for us because we were
Wow.
so, like, what? We literally promised each other, we're like, yep, we're getting this house done first, and then we'll bring in livestock. Mind you, I still had my horse. But everything else was like, yeah, right afterwards. Like, but the house has to be done first. We're not living in renovation.
horse
and
turns
dealing-
into horses, just in case you're wondering.
and dealing.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a plural. It doesn't. One doesn't exist. Just.
well, unless it turns to pony, then it changes some
Hey,
things.
but you know what though? I haven't cut grass since we used horses are benefit in that way too, where every livestock that we've brought in has expedited the process in this adventure. It gave us more time. I haven't cut grass here. I don't own a lawnmower here other than what I use for
No.
making hay, because we just fence off a little area
And it's just fake
and
fence.
fake wire fence, and the horses come in and mow the grass for us.
Yeah.
And that saves me a week, a weekend day
Oh, yeah.
that I would have spent cutting grass. Well, now I could
Or
put it
weed whacking.
towards, or weed whack, or I can put it towards repairs on the barn, repairs on the house, or I put that time into doing things with the family instead of cutting grass.
Yeah.
I mean, livestock has helped us, like you're alluding
Well, they're
to, right?
kind of dual purpose in a lot of ways, really.
Oh yeah, they drive you crazy, but they
Yeah.
do a wicked job at everything else.
It's just
So it's well worth it, but it's for a lot of people it's the jump to do it, and I think you just have to get over it. And you just got to do it. There's
Yeah,
to
it's
some
true.
extent you're prepared, but you'll never be fully prepared.
No.
And a lot of it is still learn on your go.
Yeah.
And it's just that is what it is.
Jay's laughing here. We got good comments coming.
What's
Oh,
going
they're talking
on?
about. I'll read a couple above there. It just says, "Me and you Acres wants to borrow one of your pigs to get rid of a bunch of their stumps because they have countless stumps at their property at the moment."
Yeah, they can have the piglets when they're driving crazy.
Bella Love says chicken math or animal math.
True.
And then
It's a
Mu
true. It's a
Acres,
true thing.
Is saying there is no such thing, Bella. Bella Love, don't tell the men.
Yeah.
It's
Just reminds me of that little meme there. I always seem to change it from seeds to chickens to whatever else you want to buy.
Yeah.
It's I'm not homeless. Just the wife wants to buy
More.
whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
Your crowdfunding.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we definitely see the benefits of doing it right to prosper. Like, remember, what was it, 7 years ago almost now? When we got those fruit trees and we planted them at
true.
Griffith that we bought from you
It's
guys.
true. Yeah,
And we got our first pieces of fruit this year.
The first, only one
Yeah.
tree
it's true.
was no, that wasn't theirs. Theirs have already.
But we planted the same
Oh
year.
yeah, we did plant the same.
You guys
year.
got plums too.
Plums,
No,
yeah.
so the plums came early. I don't know what they are. They're only like this big. They're just little cherry.
But like you said, the worms got to
Oh, yeah.
most of the stuff, the
I
apples.
showed you a picture of it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
It's a
I
nice
had
looking
this
apple.
Beautiful apple. And then I went back the next week after our renters had left, and it looked like it was there,
Mm-hmm.
but it was literally hollow because something had gotten into it and ate all of the
I know.
inside of it, besides the core
It's
and this little top
disappointing.
piece.
That's
Yeah.
that's why. Like we planted ours the very first year. We planted, I don't know, 6 or 8 apples, I think. And we just got our first apples from the one tree like this past summer.
Yeah.
And I think we ate like 2, and it was full, but it wasn't quite ripe. So I'm like, okay, we'll wait a little bit. And next thing I know, they're all on the ground and they're black and they're half
Yeah.
eaten. I'm like,
Yeah.
8
This year was
years,
weird for
7
them
years
too.
of waiting for that apple, and
Honestly,
Yeah.
you're so much better. Like, you're better off just going to.
Like you
There's
said,
always-
the raspberries and you know, for us, our
100%.
strawberries were almost instant. And
Yeah.
the raspberries, she got the yellow raspberries.
I bought those in the fall from a nursery. So they were all rebated because they
Yeah.
basically it's the end of the season. I got them super cheap. I think I paid like $10 for a potted one of them. And they produced that, although this type was a fall bearing as well.
yeah.
But yeah, like they were beautiful. Like I think they're Anne.
They're
or
Anne.
Queen.
Anne is
Yeah.
There's
really
another one
nice.
too.
They taste like honey.
They are
man,
so
They're
good.
one of my
so
favorites,
good.
but the wasps love them way
Yeah.
more than they love the red ones. I'm like,
See,
I
and
have
don't
such a
have
problem
that
with
issue
wasps.
because they're in my field.
Yeah.
So we
Okay.
have the wind,
Yeah. Keeps the
right?
bugs
So
down.
it keeps the bugs off of them. I don't have any bees. Like they don't.
So they don't
come very
really
often.
come on my red ones. I have Nova Red, and I love them. They're very prolific. But then we have the yellow ones,
Yeah.
and they're right beside each other, 2 rows, and they're just the wasp devour
over
the
it.
yellow.
So hitting on that note as well, like losses and stuff, we planted potatoes, and potatoes are like, you guys have the garlic thing, and I'm super excited. I used her garlic video to plant my garlic because we go through a lot of garlic, especially with pigs. We make our own sausage, and I love honey garlic sausage. So we make a pile of that, and so we plant our own garlic, and we use the potato method in our feed totes from the pigs to keep the bugs out.
Wow.
But we planted such a little amount of potatoes, and it returned tenfold
Oh yeah.
right away. Like that's
We
another
had way too
excellent.
many potatoes this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
It-
mean, can you really have enough? I don't
No,
know.
I don't know.
I
yeah.
mean, I didn't know what to
True.
do with them all.
Well, so and that's like go back to talking about canning versus freezing.
Yeah.
So in that case, you could cut it for fries. You could blanch them.
Yeah.
And at that point, you could freeze them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for me, storage wise, that is kind of easier because me trying to figure out how to cold store them
Yeah.
and hope that they don't get their little runners
Yeah.
going and whatnot.
So that's
Too hard.
definitely like another topic because there's so like
Oh, yeah.
between canning and freezing and cold cellar and dehydrating, there's
Yeah.
so much you can do. But I guess dealing with the priorities is like finding out where to put your money, like right
Yeah.
off the get go to not have big losses, right? Like,
Nope.
okay.
So Thorhaven was saying that young fruit trees take so long.
They
Yeah.
do. They do.
And then Bella Love says dwarf apple trees planted properly do well fast. So it depends maybe on the methods of
That
Maybe,
is
yeah,
a topic.
too.
Like I want to talk about it at some point. Is rootstocks, because knowing your rootstocks is going to make all the difference.
Yeah.
But so with the dwarf, what Bella was saying, the dwarf will give you fruit like within maybe 3 to 4 years, but it doesn't have the longevity. It's not gonna be there when your kids grow up, right?
Right,
So
okay.
you go to more of a standard rootstock. There's many rootstocks to choose from, but if you go to a more standard rootstock, it's not gonna give your fruit right away, but it could be there when your great grandkids
Yeah.
are there, right? But there's also more disease that might come with a standard, because with the dwarf fruit stalks are kind of hybridized in some ways, right? But there's so much to talk about with that. But yes, you can get fruit right away from relatively close
Sooner,
after
yeah.
with the dwarf. But the other thing is location. Where we are, we're
Oh,
really
yeah.
limited to our growing season. So
Big time. Yeah.
it depends.
Oh, well,
like you
and
can
especially
do,
Thorhaven, he's even less up there.
yeah, there are places where you can go to get the
Yeah.
like colder climate zones, rootstocks and things like that. But if you're further down south, I know that we have friends down south there that have the dwarf, and they're getting phenomenal apples. So location does play key too. There's a lot of factors to put into
Well,
that.
I think like going on the location and kind of like reaching back into last week's is picking your location. Ours came with the benefit of most of these old homesteads out here have old apple trees.
Oh yes.
So we have an abundance. I think we've got 5 good trees, and we just trim them back. Kind of in March is when we read you're supposed to do them. We trimmed them back in March, and it got to the point this year where we were canning, doing everything we could with the apples. We were feeding the pigs so many apples that the pigs were pushing them away. They were refusing to eat them anymore, and that was just from what was already on the property that kind of helped us along.
Yeah.
But starting from zero, it's a long time. But these things have been there for
And that's
80 to 100
another
years.
good
Yeah.
point. Like if your property has like wild apples,
Yeah.
we have a few wild apples around. So you're not going to get like the nice apples you're going to, eat necessarily, but you can
It tastes
right
awesome
away.
when they're dehydrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we dehydrate them. They're super sweet. They're
Yeah.
really
Sweet.
good. Another thing is, I did it with Angie at Me New Acres, but we made apple jelly. That can be made from any type of apple.
Yeah.
Right. So you could literally go in your field or
Yeah.
wherever there's wild apples, automatically you're gonna make jelly. Right. Another thing is, I know you can do apple cider vinegar right away. So using what's on your property, not spending money and having something
big
is
time.
key too. Like that's huge.
Like rhubarb patches and stuff are usually around
Yeah,
these places.
That's right. Old homesteads.
Yeah. And so going to our going rural, let's say, when we started that, we had a big discussion on like moving away, I guess, from food and into like things that would set you up if you're coming
Yes,
from the city with
that's
nothing.
true.
I think we should touch on that
Yeah,
next.
we should. Yeah.
Or what-
So because the success in homesteading isn't just your food. You
No.
know, it's surviving.
Yeah. Surviving, and it's that even if you don't get it the first year, it gives you like a
Head start.
head start
Yeah.
and that little bit of a win that you need to continue on through that first winter.
Push through, yeah.
But
That's right.
getting through that first winter brings me into like our priorities in what you should purchase or what you should think about before you move from city to rural. And the number one thing that we both agreed upon was you need transportation
Yes.
that can be reliable in winter conditions, and assist you in doing things like bring stuff in, whether that be
yeah.
hay, feed, wood, whatever. So, we talked about the little cars. We
Yeah.
each had little cars at some point. Well, now we have trucks and SUVs
Yes.
and small utility trailer, whatever else. Those things are like a number one that if
Yeah,
you're
definitely
thinking about-
having like the 4x4 or an all-wheel drive. But like, I've always thought, oh no, we need a truck. Really, like, truck is good. It's a little bit more on gas than like our little SUV.
Yeah.
But having a
and the
trailer
expense, the initial expense is
is-
crazy on trucks.
is so much more important, I think,
Yeah.
having a trailer, because it's multi-purpose.
Yeah.
Like you said, you want to get wood, you can use your trailer. You want to bring in compost or dirt. You need to get hay,
Yeah.
feed. even if renovating your place or building a barn or
we got
something,
rid
of-
the
Yeah.
trailer is, I think, very high on the list of a priority. for
Big
sure.
time. And a vehicle, like for somebody looking at this video thinking, or this live that's thinking, I'm in the city and I want to move out, what can you do now?
Yeah.
Just line yourself up with
Yeah.
a vehicle that can pull a trailer.
Get a hitch on or
get a
something,
hitch
yeah.
on it and make that link. And then jumping from there is, into that, again, my thing is making it the first winter, because we've seen a lot of people come up and the first winter beats them down, and next thing you know, the
Again.
place is up for sale.
Yeah.
So like a generator, right? We could talk about generators.
Yeah.
That was something that we undervalued. And
Us too. Like,
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
think you can make it? You're like, it's whatever.
well, when you're in the city, like for 98% of the time, you always have hydro.
Yeah.
Right? When we came back here, we're like, you know what? Hydro's not guaranteed all the time.
No.
And so, like, we didn't have a generator for the first year we were up here.
Yeah.
And it was definitely should have been very high up
Yeah.
on our priority list.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what was your experience?
So it's not even like, I think part of it too is that the way our hydro lines and that work, right? And the fact that we are out farther, so we're not always priority.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's
For
days
hydro,
sometimes.
like-
yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing is that it's not just out for a couple hours.
No.
So,
I mean, you can pretty much guarantee the hydro will say, your power, if you lose your power at 4 or 5 in the morning, it's going to say restored at 4 p.m. I'm like, Jay, we know it's going to be 2 days later.
That's right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's just a reality, right? So it is something, even if you're not as far out as we are, having a generator, I think, is still important for a lot of things.
Well, let's say you need to water the garden, and this is the summertime too. This isn't just winter. Like
Yes.
we lose power here in the summertime if the wind
Storm,
blows in the
yes.
wrong direction.
Yeah.
And a lot of our lines were put in the 90s and 80s, and they're just at the point where
But they're also long lines. They go
Yeah.
from like
Yes.
Yeah.
at one point, like, so your guys' line I think is from literally Calabogie all the way up to Manawatchin.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like that's a long haul, and if you take that windy, twisty road, that's
It's
one
long.
of the best roads for biking. But
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of trees, and there's a lot of trees that can very well touch that road.
But like you have livestock, chickens, and gardens, and you need to get water on these things midsummer and wintertime. Our cattle, they aren't smart enough to eat snow, and they're spoiled, so they get water in a trough.
Yeah.
Like without our generator to run the well pump to pump water out, I don't know what we do. Like we do have a creek, but like
Yeah.
bucketing that amount of water to feed
that's
when we
right.
got 50 chickens, you're filling all, or for when we had
even like
100,
your
we're
horses
filling.
and your cattle, like that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 100 chickens, we were filling all of our water jugs we had out for them on pasture 2, sometimes 3 times a day. And that was in the summertime. So
Yeah, that's one thing. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
a little off topic, but chickens go through so much more water
It's
than
crazy.
they do food. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize that.
However, if you soak that food,
It's
it makes
true.
a difference. And
It's
I have
true.
noticed that. I played with that a little bit, but they
That's a
don't-
whole nother
But they don't
story,
make
I think.
feeders for soaked food.
They don't.
So that's like a whole nother rip your hair out thing, because it's just you try to get creative with things and make things last longer or do certain I don't know, and it just doesn't work. So
but I wanted to get those two in. Those are the two things that I undervalued was the generator and having a trailer or a pickup or an SUV that's capable of moving stuff.
And a lot of people in the city, like as soon as they're like, and some like as soon as they think that they are, planning to move, the first thing they do is go out and they buy a truck.
Yeah,
It's a very many
$70,000.
many people do, and there's nothing wrong with having a truck. It'll be very useful, but I do think that your money's better spent on a good trailer.
Yes, you can, especially now, like prices of them is just wild. Even used market is crazy. Like a good utility trailer from Home Depot or whatever is, $1,000, and you can hook a hitch to your car or medium SUV to pull it. Like that's a better
well,
way
the
to
other
do
thing
it.
is we've used it with the 4-wheelers all the time too.
Oh yeah, like our utility trailer gets hooked onto our ATV, which we had already had ATVs before we started this, but our ATV is pretty invaluable. But again, I don't want to go into that because I'll go down a wormhole of why I think you should buy an old tractor instead of an ATV because it's cheaper. But anyways,
And then we're really gonna fight about it.
then that chicken will be going
Then
off.
it gets
but
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
big boxing gloves come
Yeah.
in.
We have slight different views of that.
But like we use the utility trailer to haul firewood around the property, brush, scrub brush when we're
We've
clearing the
done
garden.
Dump runs.
Dump runs.
Like,
Yeah, we've done all kinds of stuff with our trailer, and that's been like we've went through two. we broke one Home Depot one, probably buy a better one than the Home Depot one, I guess, than we had. But yeah,
Wow.
they've been good to us, and for a very minimal budget instead of a pickup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
and so from the banking aspect too, like buying that pickup truck, like that also, especially if you're trying to plan ahead of time, if you're buying a vehicle like that, it also counteracts what you can buy household wise, like your property. So that don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't buy any new vehicles because it just takes away from what you can spend on your property or your house or your farm, whatever you're looking at.
Kendra had brought up a really good point this week as we talked about it too, and Jay and Jenny and me, we all unanimously help me out with that.
Unanimously.
There we go. We all agreed that a wood stove and getting your firewood seasoned properly and started is key in your first year.
Yeah.
Especially rural where we are in most places. Electricity's high and delivery charges is the main thing out here. So electric heat's kind of out. Wood and oil, oil and propane are extremely high.
Right now, especially. Yeah.
And wood heat is kind of your best option. Mm-hmm. And starting your seasoning your firewood as soon as you can is key.
Sorry, go ahead.
That doesn't mean you have to have it ready to go right away.
That's right.
You can buy in. So like I think you guys do tandem load, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can buy that in the first year, but then still work on getting your other stuff stockpiled if you have the property to do that. That's right.
That's it.
Yeah, I was going to mention, like Jay had mentioned earlier, that when we were talking, is, so basically, before I say this, but this whole priority thing is within your first year. So we're not talking about you buy your house and within like the first 2-3 months, you're doing all these things. This is like, you've got like 365 days to make, this successful. So what he was going to mention, or he had mentioned earlier when we were talking, was, start out, if you are going to get a wood stove, or if you have a wood stove in the place you got, is buy a tandem at the very beginning so that you're not out there having to rush and cut wood and get it seasoned. Yeah. Put it away for the winter, and then as you're using your tandem, cut wood for the previous years. So that would be like the best way to do it.
Oh, big time.
That allows you to pick and choose because there's bug season and it is bad. So that's a whole different thing, but that affects certain things. Like I like cooler weather, so I don't like to work in the summer. So hay season and I don't get along very well. If you try to sucker me out to go do wood in the summertime, I tell you where to go.
Just not into it. Yeah.
But give me rain or cooler weather, that kind of thing, spring, fall. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll help you. Like, no problem.
Yeah. I think on the wood topic, before we leave it, I have had a lot of chainsaws, and I'm certain there is a million different opinions, like I said before, and views on chainsaws. I only would want to say, if you're going to buy a chainsaw for a homestead, where you plan on doing your own firewood, buy a Pro Series saw. It doesn't matter if it's a Chinese knockoff or whatever. Don't buy something too small because you're going to be kicking yourself in the end. Get something that can cut a big piece of maple and elm with ease. You'll save your back and save you time in the end. Mm-hmm. That's something that we made a mistake. I had a homeowner saw when I first started, and I immediately upgraded because I realized that the old dead elm, which surrounds us, that is ready to go for firewood standing, it just couldn't hack it. No. That's all. Just to save you money, buy the right saw the first time. Yeah.
And if you have no experience doing like chainsawing, like
take a course.
Because I've been to the feed store a few times, and they're like, oh man, this guy bought a saw and he was going to do something completely like wrong. Or we had a friend of ours come up to cut some wood that had never done it, and he wanted experience. Totally on the wrong side, was going around. Was going around the whole tree. So if you have no experience and you don't know what you're doing, don't just get a chainsaw and go out there
Yeah,
and do it. Like
that's right.
literally get some experience, find someone who knows how, take a course.
Yeah.
Like I don't want anyone to be unsafe. So
No, that's
legit,
right.
like I mean,
They're dangerous. Yeah.
they're very dangerous.
I don't touch them.
Yeah.
The electric one I do the odd time.
Yeah, the electric Ryobi you use. Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Just basically trimming.
Yeah.
Which that is a good one.
So Dana was mentioning about bug season is better with a heavier mix of oil in the chainsaw gas, so you don't have to worry about bugs.
Yeah, or behind Rob's Old Smoky.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
also done that.
And then they mentioned about a minimum 18-inch to 29-inch bar buck logs without bending over.
See, there you go. I knew there was chainsaw guys out there.
He was saying that earlier too.
People are passionate about their chainsaws, and I don't know enough to get into it. I just know the mistakes I've made. Yeah.
And I just asked that question about what their thoughts are on first priorities when moving out to your country home.
yeah.
So, T-Hand's Homestead mentioned they were thinking that planting fruit trees and garden first. Me and You Acres mentions depends on circumstance. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
theirs initially was garden and chickens, but now because they're building,
It's
it's
different.
better just to wait because
Yeah.
they're in that process of
So
That's good.
we both started the same. Like we didn't want to get into this topic. Like Kendra and me and you guys, we all talked about it. Was we bought homes that needed work, so
Yeah.
we didn't want to talk about. Obviously, you need to get yourself a living situation first.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's a priority.
Me and You Acres actually mentions priority is mainly shelter, water,
Yes.
food.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're looking at it as an angle from buying our home, like having our homes already there. But
Yeah.
we knew there would be a diverse amount of like opinions on it, and it definitely your circumstances will play into that. But you know, when like I said, when we first bought, like we did spend like a good chunk of the money on renovating the place before we did. But again, we bought in the fall and it was spring when we started planting. So there's those months of putting the priority first on the home
And we
too,
first
right?
moved out, we didn't try and do like a huge garden either. Right?
No,
So
like we didn't
started off
start big.
small.
for
Yeah.
us, the day we took possession was heyday. So
We're literally
Literally
throwing bales.
throwing square bales the
In-
day we took
No, no,
possession.
no. I think we had to build. We had an hour to build a floor in that barn.
In the
first.
barn, yeah. So that was it. Just immediately for us was right into get the
Wow.
hay in the barn to feed Jenny's horse that turned into horses. Get that done,
Says that.
and then it was we need to fix this house needs a lot of work.
No,
but
then it was fencing. I think.
well, it was
I think we
fencing.
had to put a fence up because Mac was still at their waterfront.
We did, yeah.
property.
But we did the house first. But we talked about it too. Like there's people out here that we know of and that touch on it on my channel and on your channel that are in yurts. They're in temporary shelters. They're in trailers.
Tiny homes.
But the wood
Yep.
stove still plays a part. They still are heating
Yeah.
with wood instead of propane. Tiny home guys, like that was still a key thing. So that's why we brought the wood stove into it about talking about the house was, yes, it's a priority, but bring your wood stove in, get your firewood going. It doesn't matter what you're living in. Generally, that's the cheapest option to heat yourself.
Your
Yeah.
generator's going
And
to
your
come down to
generator
that too.
is-
Because
Generator too.
Yeah.
while we were doing renovations, we had to use our generator.
Yeah, we had power off here a lot of the time because we had to redo electrical and we ran generator. Down in the barn, we had no power. So we only have solar down there even now. So we run our generator when I'm using power tools or if I need extra lighting at night and the solar can't keep up or whatnot, I use the generator down there. Yeah, running the cement mixer and whatever else too. So, I mean, those things are why we touched on it anyway. We
And
didn't
I
want to
think-
get into building a home because both of us just,
Yeah, we haven't done it.
yeah.
But like I do know we do eventually want to get some people on to discuss.
Yeah.
In this live discussion, we want to get people
With their experiences.
with their experiences about buying land and the first things to do and where to spend your money, right? So we do want to have some people on here so that we can cover those topics. But
We got a good friend down the road from you guys that built a tiny home. We'd love to have them out. I know me and you
yeah.
Acres would be great
Yeah.
for talk about their build. Yeah.
is there any other things before we go to a different topic or that?
Let's see. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit. Dana was mentioning when we were talking about watering chickens, like how much water they seem to go through.
They do.
She was mentioning, they were mentioning, put your fermented feed in an open container for the chickens. They love it. And then this is another important thing I think too that T-Han Homestead mentions is that do your best to get out of debt before moving.
Yeah, that's huge. No, not everyone is going to be able to accomplish that, but we really tried to limit our debt load for years before jumping into this. Like we didn't take the $70,000 truck loans. We didn't get, we didn't get into things that like we kind of slowly stepped ourselves into it because you knew that your first year buying a home, you're going to have to renovate it, and renovations sucked a huge portion of our budget. I'm sure the same as your guys too. Like, renovating a home's expensive, especially.
Just the windows. We still had wood windows.
Yeah.
Original wood windows, and that was $20 grand.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, we had a couple
Gone.
old wood windows, I think, didn't we? Or maybe.
Oh, we still do.
I mean, they're gorgeous.
Well,
for
no,
20 grand, but
I think in the bedroom we had some pretty old wood windows.
we did, yeah.
That was those we did do some windows and some we still need to do. It's kind of a work in progress. Like we didn't get all of our renovating done, and
No.
we
Well,
There's still
still
lots of stuff.
there's
to
still
do.
lots to do, and I think there always will be.
Well,
Right?
same as
Upkeep.
us.
yeah.
But we found that we got it livable, we got it
Absolutely.
safe, and then we got it insulated and like properly heated
Yeah.
and dry. And then it was okay. Well, the trim is minor. This is minor. That's minor. What's more important is getting the food in the freezer, getting the livestock, getting the fencing. Like
land.
things are beautying up the house is great and all, but
We don't spend much.
we're
time
not
in it.
there yet.
That's
we're
the
outside.
thing. Like
yeah.
we spend more time in the winter in our home than any other time. Like we're outside all the time.
Same as
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
so-
another big thing is that
Like today was freezing rain. We spent all afternoon from noon all the way out
Still
outside,
outside.
and in the morning we were out for a couple hours. Like so
Yeah.
that's a priority, was spending time out there
Yeah.
and money out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Before we jump ahead, I also, Marileen, I see that she's online. She's Little Homestead on the Beach.
Yeah.
She did mention in I have a comment in our community tab. She mentioned a really good point about when you're not starting out, like jump into gardening necessarily or where you're going to put your fruit trees. But she mentioned to look at, for instance, take time and look at where your sun is going to be,
Yeah.
where your wind is going to be, because it's going to shift at certain times of the year, your sun, and find where you're going to get the most sunlight and stuff like that. So that plays a little bit of a role into where you're going to put things. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't go ahead and start planting some things, because things like like I was mentioning earlier, your perennials, they don't necessarily need a whole lot of sun, like your vegetable garden would. So she did make up a really good point, and I didn't want to miss that. So, even you could be in your house for the first year, or building, or in your trailer, or whatever you're doing for your first year, and just watch, where your sun is and where it's going, so that you know where to plant it. And also, when you first buy a property, you might not know what type of soil you have, or if
big
it's
time.
all rock. So
Yeah.
that's going to play a role also if you can put a garden in like soon, because you may have to, take out some rocks, or if you got sand or clay, that's going to be really hard to work with. Clay is not a nice thing to work with your garden. So she brought that point, and I didn't want to miss that, because it was really
And that still
important.
plays a role with
With
Our
with
type
our
of thing, too.
our style too is stay flexible, is like flexible and learn to adapt your approach. Like Jenny is the queen of temporary. She's not kidding. I'm not allowed to do hardly anything temporary because
or permanent.
permanent. Sorry, because things change. Like you said, sun is different
Yeah.
times a year.
Different, yeah.
And then for us too, like we had some existing structures. We still haven't added a new totally freestanding structure of our own yet, because we haven't had a really big snowfall winter with like a traditional Canadian winter. We just haven't felt like we've gotten it yet. So we don't want to build something yet, because you want to know where the snow drifts, where you need to plow your snow, move your snow, whatever. You don't want to build a building in the wrong spot.
Sun also makes a big difference.
Yeah, sun
especially
too.
Because we're not running
Yeah.
electricity out into that barn and risking it burning.
Yeah.
Now we're on to solar. Well,
Yeah.
we've already had some issues with solar because of the way the barn is designed. So,
And
wind.
livestock water is in the right place. If you put your livestock water in a spot where it's super muddy and wet all the time, and in the springtime it floods out, well, now your cattle or your horses or your pigs or whatever are going to be living in mud, and then that's a whole nother issue. So staying flexible those first years before really, drawing the line in the sand of this is going to be the winter pen or this is what's going to happen is probably not the right idea. And you touched on the topic earlier too in our previous discussion before the video of people building a house in the prime area of their garden.
Yeah, I think I did mention it at the beginning of this video, but like it's a pet peeve of mine. And it really gets me. I'm like, people see when they get their property, they're like, they see a flat piece of property and the sun's pointed at it and they're like, that's where the house is going to go. I'm like, stop. Like, that's where your garden's got to go.
Yes.
You're going to probably dig a hole anyways for your foundation or something. So, take the trees out, dig your hole and get the stumps out and plant your house there. Like, use your money wisely,
That's
so
right,
don't go and rip up something where, you, even with we talked about it earlier, with your road, where you're putting your driveway. So really look around and, get to know your property too is really important.
Honestly, spending the year just kind of waiting things out. And that didn't stop us from getting livestock.
No.
There's still ways of doing it. So the biggest thing is like...
We adapted the plan though. Continually adapted the plan.
Yes, but you could start with one small permanent pen that's is what it is, and then you can have a temporary shelter. We've used the Shelter Logic.
Yeah, the little the portable shelters. We've used them. They work great.
You can also buy temporary like panels. Like I think they were $100 and some a panel. Yeah. And they're metal panels. So, like, there's ways of doing it. But waiting the entire year to kind of feel out how the seasons change for you and targeting certain things, your wind, your sun, your shade. Shade is also a huge factor.
Oh, big time.
So that plays in both gardening and livestock.
Oh, yeah.
So shade is sometimes where you're going to get the most grass and the better grazing for some animals.
Or your water sources too. Like if your hose can't get to your garden, like your garden had to be within, like Jenny was literally out there with all of our sections of hose figuring out where we could set the garden. Because she's like, I'm not hauling water to the garden and the animals. So I'm like, all right, good enough. Yeah.
I always say I'm a lazy farmer because there's certain things that I'm like, no, it's not happening. You're doing it certain ways. Like chickens. I will not have chickens in coops because I will not clean a coop. They're out on the pasture. I will spend the extra for the fencing. I will do the extra to move them daily, just so that I don't have to deal with a coop.
Yeah.
So
it does get dirty.
There's certain things, but I think if you can kind of feel out the basically you need every season. You need to hit each season almost
even
twice.
The spring melt, like knowing where your water's going.
Wow.
That makes a big difference too.
Yeah, it does.
It's like a river. Well, our farm is on the side of a hill, and like it is. The first year I was out there with an ice pick and a shovel trying to like divert water because we had livestock in the wrong place and this and that, and then the second year got better, and now we're like, all right, we've got it figured out, but it took time.
Yeah, so now we have gravel in place in certain spots. Like that's a permanent thing for me. What else have we done so far?
We changed the way the winter pen is. We used trenched some areas because we knew the drainage was set up the wrong way, just to avoid that knee-deep mud or trying to the original driveway that was down into our place. We had to put stone down because the tractor would go through and we'd just be bogged down. So
let's just put it this way. So if we wouldn't have waited. And we would have went ahead and did certain things. First of all, our barnyard would actually be our permanent fence. And that actually is where our livestock would be. And now we know that the water drains through there. It would have been an absolute disaster. Yeah. And we would have spent money doing that. And it just, it wouldn't have worked well. So there's
Well, you would have spent the money initially, and then you would have had to redo it because it wasn't done right. Probably the same as your gardens and your fencing setups. Like you don't want to have to spend the money twice.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And
Yeah.
imagine if someone put a greenhouse in right away, and then they don't factor in certain things like the
Yeah.
sun or the shade and all
Yeah.
that. And shade is still like one of those things for gardening that sometimes you need when it comes
You
to a
do need to
greenhouse.
have you need to have shade.
So, because
Yeah.
I know I've put them up before and just kind of on the whim, and you know it overheats, and then you're like panicking trying to get it
Yeah.
to undo that.
And like with all this being said, like yes, we take the year to observe, but it doesn't
still
mean
doing
you
stuff.
can't get like a little bit of chickens. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you can't, plant a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 garden. Just know that, you might need to move it or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, light went out.
Well, that's all right.
I'm like, did the power go out? Where's the generator?
We have gotten freezing rain all day, so I am expecting the generator to kick on at some point.
That's too funny.
They're like,
Yeah.
what?
I think there's a plug-in behind. Mo.
Yeah.
We definitely definitely hit on a lot of the topics. I think, and a lot of like hopefully what we talked about was compatible with whether it's a small acreage or a large acreage, and trying to keep you like on that progressing forward path and being prosperous in your first year is really key for morale. Like it's tough.
Yeah.
And-
It decides whether you're going back to the city or staying.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, just
the
like
first
your
year.
your shovel snow shoveling.
Oh,
I'm telling
man.
you,
Yeah.
eyes ready to go first
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah.
And it's the real life. This is real life. It's the first year is you're going to be your hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I remember being out there in my Mini Cooper trying to get to work, and I
I could
couldn't.
hear you going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I was in bed.
I couldn't get out of the driveway, and I
Then you
lost
grabbed
it.
something else.
I grabbed. I don't know. I think I grabbed my old car or something that would make it out of the driveway, and drove it like through the snowstorm to work. It took me like, what usually took me an hour drive to work took me like an hour and 45 minutes that day, and I got home that night, and I was like, "This is ridiculous." And, but then you
Did
learn.
you ever have that moment where you're like, that's it? I'm
Every
going
day.
back.
That's something.
There's still days where he's like, why did we do this?
Oh, like we'll go to town some days, and like you're gonna have that. You guys probably have it too, where like we go to town some days and you come back and the cows are like standing, the calves are all out or whatever, and I just look at Jenny. I'm like, we're selling them all, and like, but you get over it, and then you know
But
what I
then
mean.
you have moments where they just magically come down the road themselves
Yeah.
and are like, hey, like, something spooked us out, and we need.
Yeah.
We
where
want to
do
go
we-
home.
Where do we go? Because
Yeah.
home is right here, and you're like, yeah, come on in, and they just come in.
The first year farming here with livestock, if we wouldn't have had that like immediate return on investment, let's call it, or that prosperity in the first year where we had chicken in the freezer, full freezer, we had pork and we had beef and we had success, and that was like, okay,
would've
all
killed you.
this hardship is worth it because I'm getting a return,
Yeah.
and that helped us push into the next years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Without that, I would have been like, put the for sale sign up, call the realtor, let's head her. Like, you know what I mean? But we did it the first year, and it was small, but we did it. That was the
And
the key.
because you did it, you know that you can do it again.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting.
And every year it's getting easier because we're making less mistakes and we're refining our techniques, and our systems are getting better. Yeah. It's probably the same as you guys. Like,
Yeah.
you know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dana mentioned because you said you were a lazy farmer.
I am.
Uh,
100%.
so not lazy, Jenny. Selective participant.
There you go.
Love it.
That's great. I'm
Yeah.
going to use that.
Love to participate. Is
That's
a
good,
excuse? Can I
Jake.
use that with Rob too in certain things?
Maybe.
Only if he can
I'm
use the same.
selectively participating in your.
Haying operation.
Yeah.
We moved to round bales, and she never even had. She just come out and brought me lunch one day and
I
was like,
brought
"Well,
you
here's my
lunch and
contribution."
drinks.
Yeah,
That was nice of her.
yeah. Where like I get so jealous of like some people, like if Thorhaven's still on. He picks up his rounds. Somebody's made him or whatever, and I'm like, man, that'd be nice. But then I look at like the haying season for us is like an all out I literally start in the morning and I'm like, all right, Jenny, don't bug me. I'm cutting hay
I don't see
today.
them until
Like I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I come home and it's 10:30 at night. I'm parking the tractor then. I'm half deaf even with hearing protection because you're cutting. But those are things that like I chose that. You know, if you're going to start a homestead, planning to cut your own hay the first year is a stupid idea. Like it was a dumb idea, but I just felt like that's what I
You
needed.
really wanted to do.
But that comes down to our location as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it costs us $500 to bring in 40 large squares.
40 large squares, yeah.
So, yeah. It's again, location is
Yeah.
key.
Wow.
But you know, and then we had to buy haying equipment or whatever. But you make those kind of choices, and you can. But you need to be aware that like there could be failures in your setups.
There
like,
will be failures.
So,
yeah.
you always want to have a little bit of a backup.
Maybe
Like-
not, yeah.
So, like, money-wise, too. If you can have a little buffer, you need a buffer.
Yeah.
We lost our tomato crop this year, and that sucked. Like not all of it, but we
Yeah.
lost some of it to that. Well, I forget
Yeah,
what it's
that's
called.
true.
You know,
I'm gonna go back onto the buffer thing. The buffer thing doesn't always have to be money. It can also be like for us for livestock. It falls back to when we had Dexter's. Horned cattle don't sell well in an auction.
Yep.
So now we've moved to polled and specialty breeds that look pretty and whatever else. So they'll sell a lot better. So that's our fallback for us, is that it's not necessarily money per se that you have to spend. It's just
yeah,
for us it'll be okay, well they'll go to auction if there's not enough hay or if we run into an issue. that
That's
kind of
true.
thing.
Yeah.
So your buffer doesn't always have to be funds.
Yeah.
It can be something different. It just depends.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
I don't know what it would be an example for gardening, but I don't know.
like
I don't
you'd
know.
have a bumper crop too, probably though, right? Like let's say
So
Maybe you change.
It's true. I always plant more than I need.
there you go. Yeah,
And mainly because you're planting for the wildlife first.
Yes.
yeah,
You know, you're planting for yourself, and you're usually planting
Yeah.
for your neighbor. You know,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
share. But yeah, I always plant extras. So that's the thing. Like, if you're planting like, I don't know, 5 or 10 tomato plants, and you have something that comes through and either eats them or disease, compared to planting 30, you're guaranteed to have tomatoes,
Yeah.
right? Mind you, you're using more seeds and stuff, but it's what I always do. And
Yeah.
yeah,
We probably have a buffer for a lot of different things.
We
if you
do,
think
yeah.
about
Yeah.
it. And it's
even chickens, there's buffers.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you sell
Yeah.
eggs, you can sell chicks. There's lots you can do.
And I think that could be a whole nother topic, but
Absolutely.
like
yeah.
you know, knowing how to process your own animals is super key for us. Like it's kind of like a super big point for us is having the ability to process your own animal. I mean, because if everything goes south, I can still
Yeah.
butcher
You know how to
and
do
eat
it.
that animal, and that'll provide me the food I need to continue on. Let's just say, right? Whereas some people we know that got into farming, they don't know how to take the chickens, they don't know how to do their
Or they're not
pigs or
comfortable.
cattle, or they're not comfortable, or they can't do it, or whatever. And now it's like, well, what do you do with an animal when you can't afford to feed it anymore? Like,
Or even if it needs to be put down.
That's it.
Like, you know, you got to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know if you caught my video, but I did do my first time doing the butchering, and I came over here, and
Yeah.
Jenny and Rob actually taught me how to do the whole thing and to gut it, and it was really cool experience. And they
Yeah.
do actually do classes. So
Yeah.
anyway, they're really good teachers, but there's times that come up when you have chickens, and I'm sure with your other animals,
yeah,
that they do need to be put down for various different reasons. And Rob was teaching me, that there's a certain way when you're cutting the neck that it's not going to be hurting the chicken. Whereas, if you cut it through the back of the neck, which most people, when you watch TV and the chicken goes down, you always see this. You could be really hurting your chicken. So
well, you
there's-
put it in more pain than it needs to be.
yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say. So definitely knowing how to do it humanely is,
yeah,
it's really nice to be able to,
yeah.
when they taught me. So
And that's a key knowledge. If you're going to get livestock,
you're going to have
this
loss
is just a
that way.
personal opinion from both of us, is if you're going to get livestock, you should know how to do that, or at least be willing and open to
Yeah.
the idea of doing that. Yeah.
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 How we going online there?
How's the comments, Jay? You got the chicken, but
You got the chicken. You look like
Yeah.
you're wanting to
I didn't
squeeze
wanna-
it, but
I didn't want
hey.
to interrupt the great
Well, that's what he's
discussions you two are
for.
having, but Rusty's getting a little tired, I think, too. But Let's see. Little Homestead by the Beach was asking about if you planted the savory. They were
Oh,
thinking
there you
about
go. Yeah.
the seed channel, and the seed challenge made them think of that. Anyways, if you-
Yes, I do
Yeah,
have
did that.
savory. Yes. And it was, yeah, so I do love planting herbs and perennial herbs, and some herbs don't grow back every year, but we did do a seed challenge last year with a number of Canadian homesteaders, and we exchanged seeds, and she
Hopefully
did
we
send
do
me
that
some
again.
stuff, and I'd like to get some of the long-lasting tomatoes eventually. I don't have any, but they seem like a long keeper tomato, I think. But if you go on her channel, she has long keeper tomatoes that have lasted like a long time. So that is really cool. And I think Hickory Croft Farm has long keepers that they're actually cutting within the last couple weeks and using for tomato sandwiches.
Oh, I
They're
love
just
tomato
still ripening
sandwiches.
up.
Nice.
Like I was like, wow.
Yeah. There's nothing better than
That's
tomato
crazy.
sandwich. Like,
Oh no, I
love
love tomato sandwiches.
So can I add to your list, because we haven't really. We
what?
said generator. We said making sure the vehicles
Yeah.
are good for winter.
Livestock.
Livestock, firewood.
Yep.
Wood stove. Freezer.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's a freezer, because emergency wise, if something happens to an animal again, you have to have freezer space for
Yeah.
it. And then for me, because I don't or I have a limited, I just water bath. That's about all I know. I also freeze a lot of my
Yeah, we
production
talked
in my
about
garden.
that already. Yeah.
So for us, a major freezer is a big one.
Yeah, and like you can pick up used freezers and new ones. Talking about power and stuff like that, the initial draw on them is high, but like we run 4 freezers here, in various sizes. They're almost all the same motor, so it doesn't really matter what size you get a freezer. It's almost always the same amount of power. It's just the size that's different. We run 4 freezers, and I have done the math. There's a great video from his name is he's on Pete. What's Pete's channel called?
Oh my gosh.
Just a Few Acres
Yes.
Farm, discussing freezers versus walk-in cooler. And he's running a pile of freezers, and he's still way less than a walk-in
Really?
cooler.
Wow.
They're a lot more efficient. So definitely a freezer is key for that. That's a good point, Jenny. Like with that, our freezers are never empty, and a full freezer is like a full shed of wood. It gives you a warm and fuzzy feeling at the end of the evening.
The other thing is too is that like realistically, like as much as we'd like to say like, oh yeah, we're living off of everything we make and whatnot, that first year is really hard. You might be lucky to be able to put some extra meals in that freezer. We had a lot of fast food, really. We had stuff like pizzas or whatever was just cheap and easy, or like chicken fingers, just basically frozen foods that are fast that you can put on because you're out doing stuff and you don't have time to make a big meal.
No.
So to me it's an important thing for a first year, because
Jenny made a lot of
Yeah.
meat pies and stuff where we just threw it in the oven, forgot about it, and like basically like stews and whatever. So that we can you didn't worry about the cooking, you just worried about getting your job done and then eating and then going back and doing what you had to do.
So
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't healthy. 100% it was not healthy, but it's just that's what we had to do. That's what we had to sacrifice in a way in order to get other stuff done, whether it be renovations or outdoor stuff. So that's what we ended up using the freezer for the most for the first year.
Dana was saying that a full freezer stays colder longer when the power goes out as well.
Yep.
So make
That's
sure
a good point.
if you have a freezer to don't
Yep.
overdo it, but have a good amount so that you don't have to worry about it when the power does go out.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other comments in there, Jay, that you want us to touch on? Or can I steal like 2 minutes?
Okay, you want to do your tractor?
I do.
He can't wait if it was tractor business.
I can't.
Tractors are
wait.
Yeah.
cool.
Here's where the fight starts.
Oh no. Oh no.
Rubber chicken beating.
Yeah. So we talked about this before. Let's say you've got over 5 acres. You're starting a basic homestead that's been vacant homestead or whatever, and you're looking, and whether it's your hubby or your spouse is like, we need an ATV. Well, new ATVs are like 10 grand or whatever else, and you can go take your $10,000, buy a 4-wheeler, and it'll do a quarter of the job of an old tractor. An old tractor or a used tractor in the back lot of a farm supply or whatever else will do 10 times the amount of work than one of those will. You can till your garden, you can plow your snow. If you get one with a loader and a bucket, you can landscape and do whatever else you need to do, move manure, the whole 9 yards, firewood, and everything like that. And you should be able to find one of those old rigs for fairly cheap. And YouTube is out here. I mean, you guys are on it now. You can easily find things to keep them running. So that's just my little thing where I see people that are like, I bought a $30,000 side-by-side and a $20,000 Skidoo and a $70,000 truck, but
And a snowblower.
and a snowblower and
Lawn
a
tractor.
lawn
Tiller.
tractor and a tiller, and next thing you know, like you're wasting your time really and your money because you can do all this with one device for a lot cheaper. That's my little spiel on tractors. The one last point. If you buy a 22 horsepower brand new tractor, that's a lawn tractor. That is not a real tractor. That will break, guaranteed. You know, these LS 22 horses or 30 horsepower little Coyotes and Kubotas and stuff, that is not going to do the job reliably for a long time. That is a short-term thing, and you will tear them up. I got work on this stuff on as you know, I fix things over for people in that, and don't spend your money on that. Buy an older unit that's built properly.
Like,
so that,
what's an example of an older unit?
so an older unit would be like something from the 60s and 70s in that, you know, $3,000 to $6,000 range that might not look pretty, but it'll have the implements you need. Well, when you're learning how to use a tractor, you're going to hit stuff harder than you should. You're going to make a mess of your driveway. Your wife's going to yell at you for breaking stuff or running into things. But when you do it with a brand new tractor that you financed, these little tiny ones, you get a quarter of the tractor for $20,000. But it's really, you know, it's a oversized lawnmower is what it is.
Wow.
And when you break stuff with them, it's expensive. And as a learning experience, they are not the right purchase.
No. It looks appealing though. Like the small ones look appealing because you can usually get additional things on this. So like whether it be the arm that what's that called?
You can, but you can add all of the attachments to an older tractor as well.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in a budget sense, if you've got over 5 acres of land and you need to do some heavy maneuvering, like for us, we had to put a driveway in and we used a $2,000 tractor to do stone the driveway, level the yard, do the barnyard, level out that with a box blade. So for $3,000, I've done probably $10,000 worth of landscaping, which is a huge savings.
It costs a lot of money to get someone to come into landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dana is excited about Tractor Talk.
Good.
It said, woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Wait. They found an old 66 Massey Ferguson 135.
Perfect.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
With a brush hog and a blade for under $3,000. Or sorry, $3,000 dollars, and it was under 2,500 hours. Used implements are easy to find online.
Yeah.
Me and you Acres, even though they have their backhoe up for sale,
Yeah.
they love it.
So jealous of the backhoe. Just saying. It's
They
jealous.
love it, but they're in search for a tractor.
Yeah.
And then Mike learned how to use the backhoe the day he got it. There were accidents and bumps
that would have
along
been
the way.
terrifying.
There was no wife yelling at him. Ever laugh out loud.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Little,
That's her secret, and she's
Little
keeping
homestead
it.
by the beach ever. ...
Yeah. It's just I wanted to bring it up. I only wanted to take a short amount of time because I know
fine,
you guys
yeah.
don't really wanted to.
If I had more acreage, then I would want a tractor.
See, I disagree with that. You said originally that you need it.
Well, I don't
First
think
year.
it's not
and I
required.
think I've changed your mind a little bit more now.
Maybe you don't need it, but I'm just saying if you have nothing and you need a snowblower and you right away the snowblower, like a box store snowblower is $1,000. Well, you're a third of the way to a tractor
That's
at
right.
that point.
Yes.
And then you look at it as well. I need a snowblower. I need a bucket to move manure or
need a
to
lawnmower.
dig dirt, dig your garden. You need a lawnmower. Well, you can get a sickle bar mower is what we have.
Or you can get the bush
or a
mowers.
brush hog or whatever. You can do all of that with one piece of equipment instead of putting it into all those little things that you only use for one purpose. That's all I wanted to say. And I know a lot of people will jump down the road of ATV and side-by-side. We have them. When you start using them as farm tools, they break all the time. And they're really expensive. Like, really, really expensive.
Especially
other
if you don't know
thing-
how to fix them yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I fix them myself and I'm complaining. Like, I mean, it's... that's the thing. Like your
But the
side
other
by side
experience
is
too-
the best of the best from Can-Am, and we use it to haul some water. And I'm going through a $400 belt, a couple times a summer. It's crazy. Like
He likes to complain about that.
I
one a
do.
lot.
Yeah,
Any opportunity.
Any opportunity, which is true.
fair,
But
though.
the other thing is that yes, used tractor makes more sense than going 4-wheeler,
yes.
especially if people are financing it. There's going to be a lot of people that go, well, you can buy a used 4-wheeler, and that's a whole different
Oh,
issue.
we don't need to
because
go. Yeah,
Don't get
Nobody's-
started on
yeah.
that.
Don't. We'll go down a
There's a
wormhole.
reason why
I'm
it's
gonna get
used.
them
Don't buy
started
it.
again.
Yeah.
We'll see what your comments would be on this one. So Dana, keep in mind older gas-powered tractors are easier to start in the cold,
Yep.
Yes.
which is true. Weather depends then. Weather temps than diesel-powered, especially with no means to plug in.
Yes,
That's
but
right.
Diesel can do more, but then at the same time,
You know what though? In that horsepower range, like she's got a Massey 135. I have an International B250. They're about the same horsepower. My B250 is diesel, the diesel units are really expensive to repair. Where a gas tractor is really cheap, and you can get parts from Canadian Tire, PV Mart, TSC it used to be called. Basically any farm supply store will have parts for a Massey 135, a Ford 9N, or an old gas tractor, whereas the diesel units are a little more pricey and they take more work.
Yes.
I mean, they use a lot less fuel, but those old gas units get overlooked. And a set of tire chains on a 2-wheel drive gas tractor will go everywhere a 4-wheel tractor can
what's
go.
the difference in initial expense?
That's the other thing too. A used diesel in that kind of age range will be double as much as a used gas. People have decided that they need diesel, they need 4-wheel drive, and they no longer see value in those, where you can find some bargains on those old units, like real bargains. 15. There's one for sale south of us here. The person wants $1,500 for it. It has a loader, a box blade, and it's a 22 horsepower Ford 9N. Like $1,500 bought you a lot of tractor at that point.
Wow.
That's a diesel unit of that size would be 6,000-7,000 at that point with that kind of age range. I hope that answers your question.
they were mentioned also 2-wheel drive tractors farmed the world for decades.
That's right, and people forget that. I plow my snow with my International. It's 2-wheel drive. It's 30 horsepower, and it has chains on it. We had 15 years of experience with my dad. Had a Ford 9N, Ford 2N at his hunt camp with chains, and we did everything with that. And that hunt camp was, it's in the woods, and we logged with it. We did everything. It's just you don't need 4-wheel drive. It's a nicety to have, but when you're new on a tractor, I seen it working with other people, especially those little Kubotas and those little ones. They're 4-wheel drive and they're so light. People are running them in 4-wheel drive all the time, and they're tearing the front ends out of them because they're learning how to use a tractor and they're pushing it beyond its limits.
Wow.
You're better off with an older unit. Break the old unit. You don't lay awake at night longer, as long, right?
Now, we originally went brand new.
Yeah, but I spoil myself.
Yes, but
Yeah.
part of the reason why we went brand new is because everything we looked at that point in time was 50 plus years old. And because of our age, we're like, well, we might as well just go brand new. Then we know what life it's had and whatnot, and it'll last up until we retire anyways.
That's one side of the story.
Yeah.
The other side of the story is Jenny brought home a horse, and I went, I'm buying a tractor, and she couldn't say no. So I was like, well, this is my only chance at this one. So I went, I found a leftover model, which is new old stock, right? It was sitting on the lot. It was 2020 when I bought it, or just before the kind of COVID
Just
craziness
before,
started.
2019?
2019, I guess. And it's a 2013 model. So I paid I paid 38,000, and then it was like $500 shipping because we bought it from 9 hours away. Bought it on video chat and whatever. But it was brand new model. So that now is worth 45,000 because prices went up.
Yeah.
But I found that tractor brand new is 70. So
Wow.
I'm still 45,000 is what the used value is worth. So you can find those deals. They're around.
But there's also a trick that we learned, and that had to do with your horsepower.
Yes.
Versus
When you buy
tax.
a tractor, horsepower is a factor. So when you're buying a tractor from a dealer or from a used perspective, you don't pay tax if it's over, I think it's 60 horsepower at the PTO. It might, 50 horsepower at the PTO, which is the power takeoff. There's no taxes on that. So you're better to buy a 50 horsepower plus in some cases. Yeah. Sorry, I hope that answers their questions on.
Dana was saying that they're 135 with chains, 45 horsepower PTO, and a 6-foot blower will move tons of snow and do so much more. And they also mentioned well played, sir, Rob. Well played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ask Rob
Lovely.
how many tractors he has versus how many horses I have.
This is
I
a
still
good
think
rule.
he has less though, doesn't he?
I am
No.
I am short one.
No.
The short one?
Yeah.
I don't own the last horse.
So for those, Kendra and Jay know, because it's kind of a funny
It's an ongoing
topic
joke.
on the farm here. We have a rule. So every 4-legged animal I can't eat, i.e. horses, I can buy a tractor for. Or I shouldn't say can, I buy a tractor for. So I have 3 tractors and there's 4 horses. So I'm still like, I might get one, right?
There's 2 horses.
Yeah.
1 pony is your daughter's, and then 1 is a boarder who pays me money.
It's not how the rules work.
Anything that steps foot on the property.
Yeah.
Unless that tractor's making me a monthly income,
Yeah.
like I don't think so.
No, we honestly, I just think if you've got over 5 acres, or it doesn't even really need to be an acreage thing. It's just your job.
Yeah.
If we had to pay somebody to come in, like I said, to do what we did here with stone, and you can see some of my videos of moving stone with the box blade to do our driveway and stuff, and level out the muddy areas. It would have cost me over 10 grand. Our neighbors are landscapers, and they said, yeah, you did $10,000 worth of work, and I did it with
Wow.
$3,000 worth of equipment. And I
So you
still have the
didn't
equipment,
lose.
right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah, I didn't lose. And
That's
I think
amazing.
that could be good value for people looking at that need that kind of work to their property.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also with the generator, right? You have a backup generator to the backup generator, right? So you
Yeah.
need a backup tractor to the backup tractor.
Yeah. Yeah, the
When it
track.
comes to hay, it was actually our neighbor who was doing the hay originally that told us basically to make
Yeah.
sure to have 2 tractors.
Our neighbor is a 5th or 6th generation farmer, and he said you should always have a backup because if one goes down when you're haying, you're in
Oh,
trouble.
wow.
And the first 2 months of being here, my brand new tractor went to service, and they wouldn't return it to me because a safety switch was broken, and it was at that point the height of
Wow.
COVID, and it sat there for 7 months. And they wouldn't give it back to me. So I had my $2,000 backup tractor that had to get us through the winter, feed the hay,
Wow,
do
7
all of that
months.
work. 7
Oh,
months
yeah.
it
That's
sat there.
crazy.
So yeah, it was nice to have a backup.
Yeah.
But you don't. This is really unnecessary, right?
Yeah.
Like it's we're kind of into that homesteader moving into ranching for profit, and that was due to haying specifically, which is why that's a whole other topic. But buying in hay for your livestock is a lot cheaper in most cases than making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's just my. I guess we can move off the tractor topic, or is there any more questions on that? I just wanted to get it out there so that the people that are looking in the city that are like, well, I can buy a 4-wheeler now because I can store that. It will not do what a tractor will do. That's all I wanted to get across. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't want to as best possible, don't spend over your means either.
That's right.
So just
Yeah.
Well, just
Yeah.
using your whatever you have financially, like using it wisely for the best amount of value.
That's right,
that's
value, yeah.
So that's really what I think this whole, I guess, homesteading, you might need to, go into debt a little bit for this and a little bit for that. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, you got to be debt free and go this way. And I do agree. It's really important to not go into debt, and it's hard to get out. But using the money that you do have on what you buy so that it's used for multiple reasons.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, big time. I mean, the utility trailer is so vital to
Yeah.
be multi-purpose. But
Yeah. I can't see you being completely debt free. Like, I mean, kind of like when we come into it, yes, but at the same time, we had to take on debt
Yeah.
in order to actually run this.
yeah,
So it's
not
just part of it.
significant amounts, but enough
No,
that
but-
you will. Yeah. I mean, and when you're making those decisions in livestock and feed and that, and doing the like what we talked about today, a lot of this advice hopefully will help people make the choices so that
Yeah.
they're seeing a return on their investment a lot
Yes.
quicker.
A lot
Yeah.
quicker.
Because beef you raise yourself, I ran the numbers. I'd have to pull them all out, but it's way cheaper for us to raise our own beef than it would be to buy it in the stores right now. Chicken, when you look at the factoring in chicken, we can raise our chickens for $1.50 a pound maximum. Where you buy it in the stores now, 4 chicken breasts is over $10.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy when you think about it.
Dana earlier was mentioned because you said about a good trailer. They said an idea, or at least ideas for trailers, is to find an old camping trailer that someone is selling cheap and convert it to a utility trailer.
Yeah.
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 That's right.
There's
Yeah.
all different ways, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. But we
We-
should wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That hopefully gives some good insight into like things that'll help you be prosperous sooner, get some bang for your buck in value, and making the right decisions so that you don't have to redo what you did.
Yeah.
I think we covered most of it.
We
I
did,
think.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, we're just hoping that you guys can get a head start and prioritizing where your money's going in your time, because your time's valuable
Yeah.
too. So, anyways, thanks for joining us here again. We loved having you guys. We loved all the comments. We love that
Yeah,
you guys
for
are
sure.
interactive and asking us questions and even sharing your experiences, because that's what this is all about. So,
Yeah.
have a good night.
How'd we do for time? I wasn't really looking.
8:30.
30 minutes. That's right.